everybody.
Becky Page, we've got you somewhere. There you are on Zoom. Everyone on Becky Page can unmute, and then Naomi Weinberg, Blair Berggren, you're going to tell me how to pronounce that. Ms. Bryant, everyone unmute, start your cameras. All right. And this is case 38019. So let me put everybody under oath and we can get started here. So Becky Page, have you raised your right hand with me? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. And then Naomi Weinberg, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. And then Blair Berggren, is it?
Yes, Your Honor, you said it correctly.
Great, Berggren. All right. Raise your right hand with me. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. And then Ms. Bryan, on behalf of Olympia Pet Emergency, raising your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Yes.
So we got everyone under oath. So first things first, is there someone among the defendants or respondents that can actually bind Olympia Pet Emergency in litigation?
Bind them? How do you mean? I'm sorry.
Meaning that you're a representative, they've given you the authority to come to court and be their representative.
Yes.
So that if a decision by the court is made as to their need to pay money to someone else, that there's be a dispute that someone was there without their authority.
Yes. So our legal department is aware, and they said we will wait for the judge's orders. And then I text my supervisor, Ryan, who is actually on PTO, but he knows that we're going through this and have been going through this.
Okay.
So I am the authorized person.
Okay. All right, good. And your capacity with Olympia Pet Emergency is?
I'm the
what?
hospital manager.
Hospital manager. All right. So, all right. And all of you, you'll see me looking back and forth like this because I have my file electronic and I'm opening that up now to kind of get all the information before me. And what I reviewed of Ms. Page's documents that were filed, I don't see anything that was filed on behalf of Olympia Pet Emergency. Ms. Bryant, do you know, did you file anything with the court?
I did not.
Okay.
I only got the small claims form.
Well, Mr. Berggren, did
in the
you
mail.
file it? Let me just ask each in turn that one question. Mr. Berggren, did you file anything on behalf of the Olympia Pet Emergency?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and then Ms. Weinberg, did you?
Your Honor.
Okay, so I see that we were all here in court before a different judge on January 31st, and so service was perfected, and so that's done, the issues of service. And so what I'm going to go on here is what is in the court file and what I hear in testimony from each one of you. So Ms. Page, are you prepared to go forward in trial today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and then Ms. Bryant, on behalf of Olympia Pet Emergency, are you prepared to go forward today for trial?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and is Ms. Weinberg, I'm going to find out how everyone roll here soon, but Ms. Weinberg, you're prepared?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Berggren, then you're prepared?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. So what happens here is I turn first to Ms. Page and she tells me why she thinks she's owed $10,000 from Naomi Weinberg. Let me see. Has there been an amended complaint here? Directly from Naomi Weinberg, directly from Mr. Berggren. That's, let me sure, and from Olympia Pet Emergency. Each one of those three, you're claiming that you're owed money from. And so you have to that's what I'm looking to hear from you, Ms. Page. I've looked at everything you filed here with the court, and so you can direct me to whatever you want me to relook at or what you think is persuasive. And then I'll turn over to each of these people and see what they think. And so, Ms. Page, let me turn to you first.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, for just the opportunity to present my case today. It's been a long journey. On Saturday, November 20th of 2021, I brought my dog Pike in to Olympia Pet Emergency following an urgent incident that resulted in an open wound on his leg. The intake vet was Dr. Naomi Weinberg, and she confirmed that there was a fracture and that there was a need for immediate care, but they did advise that they had no cardiologist or orthopedic surgeon specialty on site, and they wouldn't have anyone until Monday, but urged me to call nearby hospitals to see if they did offer those services. So they took him in. I went out and I made several phone calls. And unfortunately, no other emergency vet over the weekend had those type of specialists available for us to transfer Pike. And so I spoke to Dr. Weinberg, and her services that she could perform were amputation. And I was concerned that that was a very severe treatment plan. But with the time span before we could get a specialist on site to review Pike, I went ahead and made the decision to move forward with amputation. I received several phone calls later throughout the day that my dog was prepped, clean, and clipped and ready for surgery, and that he would go back as soon as they had an opening. So throughout the evening, I called several times to check in, and Pike had still not been taken back for surgery. And it wasn't until Sunday morning I was informed that Dr. Blair Berggren had taken over Pike's care and that surgery had still not taken place. So at that point, we're looking at Sunday afternoon, and Monday is much closer. And so I proposed, if it was still an option, to be able to wait and transfer him to Blue Pearl Veterinarian, which had an orthopedic surgeon on site for Monday morning. So we arranged for a transfer. I arrived at Olympia Pet Emergency to pick up Pike and was shocked to see that he was still covered in the blood that he was checked in at. His bone was exposed. The wound was not bandaged. He was not clipped and cleaned, as I had been informed he was. And now this is over 24 hours that he's been under the care of Olympia Pet Emergency. So I rushed to the car, drove him to Blue Pearl. Unfortunately, the pain medication patch that they even applied didn't last the transfer. He was hunched over and whimpering in pain before we could even get him checked in. When I did check him into Blue Pearl, the intake doctors were shocked to see the state that he was in. Immediately rushed him back to clip and clean the wound and get him back on pain management. The doctor then came out and saw me and said that based on the improper wound care, the risk of infection was extremely high, and that she also would only recommend amputation at this time based on the care not given to the wound. So at that point, I'm fairly upset that I've put my dog through now another 30-minute car ride without pain medication and still have the same amputation as my only form of care. The doctor said that there was no records on file, that they were not aware that his wound had not been clipped and cleaned. But at that point, it's nearly midnight on Sunday. And so knowing that he was getting his wound taken care of, clipped, cleaned, and back on pain medication, I asked that we wait for Dr. Perry, who was the orthopedic surgeon at Blue Pearl, to arrive that morning, Monday, to examine him. And Dr. Perry gave me a call Monday morning at 6 a.m. and said that it was infected and that amputation would only be the route to take at this point. And then he also had asked that I consider humane euthanasia. And that was also a very devastating conversation to have to have. So I went ahead and proceeded with the amputation at Blue Pearl. The surgery was a success, and unfortunately, a few hours after he finished his surgery, his heart stopped and he passed away. And with the sequence of events, delaying surgery, broken promises of care, negligence in the wound treatment, leading to the infection, I am respectfully asking that the court consider the evidence that I've provided in my case, especially the images where you can see the state of the wound that he was brought in with, and hold Dr. Berggren, Dr. Weinberg, and Olympia Pet Emergency accountable for the harm that they've caused.
Why do you believe you're owed $10,000 from Olympia Pet Emergency? Why $10,000?
So I've added all of the expense that I've accrued over this nightmare that happened that weekend. There
Direct
is,
me to your exhibits every once in a while here. You've got an invoice from
Yes,
Olympia Pet
of course.
Emergency.
Yep.
So is this the amount you spent at these two veterinarian shops?
Yes. So Olympia Pet Emergency was $1,595.96, which I included the summary of charges and the receipt. Blue
Okay,
Pearl.
$1,595.96 you paid already to Olympia Pet Emergency.
Yes, that was what I had to pay when I picked him up for transfer.
And then
Blue Pearl was $5,203.32.
and you've already paid that.
Yes.
$5,203.32. I see an invoice that's paid. And then
I have included my legal fees throughout this entire 3-year process. I did hire an attorney for $1,000, and he had prepared a case and sent over demand letters to Olympia Pet Emergency that were not responded to.
and that was, I'm looking at a letter here, total
Yes.
time 4.1 hours at $2.50 an hour. I'm confused. $1,000. What did you pay to the attorney?
$1,000. The
Okay, so
additional
that was paid.
the additional $250 would have been had we gone to trial. And
Okay, so just $1,000 was
just
paid.
$1,000. Yep.
Still well below $10,000. What else?
I have the court filing fee of $50 and my process server fee.
Yeah, but we're at 7,700. So what's
Yep.
the 10,000?
And then I've also put in the replacement value of pet for $2,100. He was, the replacement value of pet?
Yeah, where's the proof of that?
No, I'm sorry. I just actually, I have not purchased a replacement pet. That was just the value that I found online for a purebred Pomeranian.
Okay, so what proof have you filed of that?
I have not filed any proof of that.
Okay, and so you're asserting that would cost you how much again?
$2,100.
And you're
Nope.
asserting that the dog you lost was a purebred Pomeranian.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, one more time, how much did you find?
The range was between 800 and 4,000, but I settled for 2,100.
And for a 15-year-old purebred Pomeranian?
No, just a purebred Pomeranian.
Okay, all right, so somewhere there, is that the sum total of your claim then?
Yes.
Okay, so November 20th of 2021, what day of the week was that?
It was a Saturday.
Saturday, all right. And then you say you took them to Blue Pearl. Do you have anything that corroborates what the doctors at Blue Pearl told you?
I do. There is a statement. And I
Dr.
can-
Thorpe?
Yep, I
Okay,
have
that's what I should look at. All
Blue
right.
Pearl, the patient history report, page 10 and 19.
Patient history report, page 10 and 19. Let me go there again. Everyone knows what we're looking at. All right, see something highlighted. Is that you're highlighting?
That is, yes.
And so this, how do I know? So this, okay. Okay, infected site, but not infected systemically. Recommend amputation. Some of this risky, costly, requires multiple seizures. Wonder if that should be sutures. I don't know, but he says multiple seizures required. Asked owner to consider humane euthanasia as pet is older, non-visual, and at risk for complications. Both Dr. Perry, I remember you said that was one of the initial doctors you saw at Blue Pearl.
Dr. Perry was the orthopedic surgeon and Dr. Thorpe was a veterinarian that was there.
Okay, so Dr. Perry's a specialist. Both Dr. Perry and myself, Dr. Thorpe, feel that euthanasia is a reasonable decision. Owner elects youth and private cremation, Dr. Thorpe, and that's page 10 highlighted. And then you also say I should look at what page?
Page 19.
19. Okay, going to page 19. That's also highlighted, physical exam. Infected fracture site, clipped, cleaned, and lavaged last night. So this is Monday, November 22nd, and this the 21st. Yeah. And modified RJ bandage with spica placed. Dr. Perry rec amputation due to infected fracture site. External risky, costly, risky, and require multiple surgeries. External fixator, not sure. Humane euthanasia, reasonable consideration, given Pike's age and previous condition and need for major surgery. And then the plan, surgery consult, discuss case with owner. Owner has concerns about communications of transfer and delay in surgery, consult wound care, informed owner that we informed OPE, which I presume is Olympia Pet Emergency, that Dr. Perry is not available until Monday. We did not discuss the specifics of care at OPE. Again, recommended amputation or humane euthanasia. And it says here, owners request humane euthanasia, but that's not what ultimately happened. I understand from you, you went through, had your dog go through surgery and then your dog died after surgery. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then I look at Dr. Let me go back. Okay, Dr. Thorpe's statement, service level of care not met is how you labeled it. And this goes back to July 23rd of 2024. So 2+ years after reviewing the medical record. So how did this come 2.5 years after this note from Dr. Thorpe?
This was when I decided to proceed with the case, and I had asked for a statement from him to support the events that took place.
Okay, so I'm looking at this item in the court file, Blue Pearl, Dr. Thorpe statement, service level of care not met is how it's labeled by the plaintiff and refers back to a July 23rd, 24 statement here by a Shep Thorpe VMD, not under penalty of perjury, but after reviewing the medical record, Pike's prognosis was guarded to grave at presentation to OPE 1120 after dog maul. Based on reviewing the notes, I think that Pike should have had anesthesia, wound care, wound culture, and surgery to close the wound and protect the bone along with bandaging after presentation to OPE. If this service could not be provided, Pike should have been referred to another emergency veterinarian. Unfortunately, we practice during a time when there are more cases than emergency veterinarians can see. So sadly, many patients must wait too long to be seen, and some patients die while waiting to be seen because of overwhelming caseload. And that's signed by Shep Thorpe, BMD. And all right, is there anything in here that you filed that tells me why I should believe Shep Thorpe knows what Shep Thorpe is talking about?
Absolutely. If you could actually go to the Blue Pearl patient history report, page
Back
14, page 14 through 18, you'll see images, and they're quite graphic.
No, what I'm asking is why should I believe Shep Thorpe has the education, training, experience to be making any statements about this? Is there something in here that gives me that person's veterinary knowledge, experience, training that I can count on?
I think that he's a qualified veterinarian in the same field that Dr. Berggren and Dr. Weinberg and Olympia Pet Emergency practice in.
Is there anything in here, though, that tells me what his background is, other than just, I mean, because there's a certain level, I mean, I can guess, but I'm not here to guess. There's a certain legal standard that I have to apply in order to accept, essentially as an expert, that this person knows what they're saying and that they know the standard of care in the veterinary arena. And so that's what I'm looking for. And I didn't see it throughout my review of your documents. So I'm not sure I can take much, can't put much into Dr. Thorpe's statements without that.
If I were able to provide his veterinarian license number, would that help validate his
It
expertise?
starts, but it doesn't get me there to understand his experience with dealing with such a situation and why he's making these statements. Now I can guess, but again, you know, it all looks kind of maybe so, but I have to set a legal standard, not a guess, it's a preponderance of the evidence, and I need more. So I'm kind of not a whole lot that I can take from that statement other than his opinion, whether it has anything, you know, I don't know his background. I can't evaluate that. I can't
That's
evaluate
fair.
that he actually knows what he's talking about without more. So, all right. So then Saturday, the dog is attacked, injured. All right. And you were told that OPE didn't have those specialists, and then there seems to be an agreement that amputation was the way to go.
Mhm.
You got messages, you said, from OPE. I think I remember, where was that? Or was that just in your statement? You got some messages by
Yes,
email?
several phone calls were exchanged with updated status and that his surgery had been delayed, but that he was clipped and cleaned and ready to go back as soon as they were available.
All right. So your assertion is that whatever wasn't done, and I'll hear from the other side here, you're asserting that whatever wasn't done at Olympia Pet Emergency then caused an infection, which then led to your dog's death after surgery. So that's what your claim?
led to me having only one course of treatment, which was amputation, and the most aggressive and invasive option.
All right, so tell me where, it seems to me that, let me go back to Blue Pearl, see if I got some questions here. Blue Pearl patient history report. Where am I? Moves that page 10 and 19. Recommended amputation. External fixator, I don't know what that means, but risky, costly, requires multiple seizures. Now we know surgeries is what that later was said. And they asked you to consider humane euthanasia as the pet is older, non-visual, at risk of complications. And then 19, I'm going back to the patient history, and then maybe that the infected fracture site, not systemic. I'm reading that somewhere. And right, they continue, Dr. Perry recommend amputation due to the infected fracture site. External fixator could be done, but would be costly, risky, and require multiple surgeries. Humane euthanasia, reasonable consideration given age, previous condition, and need for major surgery. All right. And then that Dr. Perry wasn't available till Monday, and then you decide to wait till Monday, and then this happened. All right. Anything else I should be looking at here?
The Blue Pearl patient history report, page 14 through 18, has the
Yep.
images of the condition Pike was brought in during the intake for Blue Pearl. And this is after over 24 hours in Olympia Pet Emergencies care.
So I'm looking at 14, and we'll go through these, but I presume someone at Blue Pearl took these pictures, or you took
Yes.
them, or who took?
Blue Pearl
Blue
took
Pearl?
the pictures. Yep.
And I was trying to figure out here, we presume that they were taken sometime Sunday or Monday.
Yes, that
When
would
was-
have been Sunday night that the pictures were taken for Blue Pearl's intake.
Okay, so which ones do you say show me what you're asserting? Because I do see a shaved leg, with a big wound. I
So
think it's shaved, I don't know.
Yeah,
Other
there's-
lots of hair around it. Is there something within the documentation here that helps me understand?
yes, there's a picture. I'm just trying to get the exact slide for so on page 14 and 15, you can see all the hair that's matted. That was the state of the wound when he was brought into Blue Pearl. And then the images on 16, 17, and 18 are after they have clipped back the hair to show that the bone was exposed and left untreated, uncovered.
Right. And then looking at their 11/22/21 in-house surgical consultation, and then going forward, I presume these pictures are part of that. Okay. Just kind of looking again at what I read before. And is there anything from Blue Pearl that tells you why he didn't survive the surgery, or after the surgery, I should say?
No, they knew that there was risk involved with him going under such a major surgery, which I was very concerned about, given his age, and it was either going through with amputation or euthanizing him. And I wanted to give my best friend a fighting chance to try to come out of this instead of making the decision that his time with me was over. So, yeah.
So I'm looking at page 23, surgery procedures. They talk about hospitalized on an IV fentanyl and unazin, whatever that is. He has a 3 to 4 heart murmur, don't know what that means. No obvious evidence of failure. And they clipped and flushed and fur was attached to the bone, Teflon pad, our Robert Jones bandage. Now that's what an RJ bandage is. That means he was vocalizing, so trazodone was started, fentanyl reduced, switched to gabapentin and tramadol, and it was resting. And then the next morning was the thought they were going to go forward with treatment. So nothing here about from them as to what happened after surgery. Why? Okay. So you just sort of expected that there was risk, and if he died after surgery, that wasn't the fault of Blue Pearl. It was the risk and age or injury, or why? Did they say anything about that? Did you inquire?
Inquire about the reason for his passing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They said that his heart monitor had gone flatline after he was in recovery, and they proceeded to give him resuscitation, but after several minutes, they didn't think that he was going to come back and called me to stop doing chest compressions, and that he was gone.
So did they tell you why this happened? Is there anything in these records that tell you what happened and why?
No, they didn't say why. On page 2 of the Blue Pearl patient
Okay.
history, they're at 731. That's where they go over what had happened when his heart gave out.
Right. So you're not thinking that Blue Pearl had any basis or any, I mean, you're suing Olympia Pet Emergency, and I think I'm understanding your basis, but you're not asserting any basis against Blue Pearl for your dog's death.
No, I'm not. I believe Blue Pearl provided a level of care to Pike and made him comfortable and pain-free prior to surgery, and did the best to amputate. And unfortunately, I think with his age and the stress of the amputation, his heart gave out. I don't think that they had any negligence on their part, and that the standard of care was met with Blue Pearl.
All right. Okay. So let me turn now to the folks here. You're suing independently, Naomi Weinberg. You're suing independently, Dr. Weinberg, Dr. Berggren, and you're suing Olympia Pet Emergency. So each one of those. Why are you suing? So you're saying that your theory as to Dr. Weinberg is what?
They are the veterinarians that are responsible for his care and treatment during his time at Olympia Pet Emergency.
Okay, so those two people that were in charge of your dog's care there, that's why.
Yes, correct.
And then Olympia Pet Emergency because
Of the hospital that I took my dog to for emergency services.
what are you asserting that they did wrong, that Olympia Pet Emergency did wrong? That is
If they were so understaffed and unable to provide proper care in a timely manner for my dog, I think that was negligence on their part to be able to treat Pike with proper wound cleaning. And if there was no one else available, a tech, anyone that could have cleaned and clipped his wounds within, the time he spent there, I would not have only had putting my dog down or amputation as my forms of treatment.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to turn to, let's see, first, let me check. Dr. Weinberg, I'll just turn to you. Your response to this suit against you personally.
Yes, so I am the doctor who intook Ike when he came in on Saturday. So we triaged him immediately, gave him an injection for pain control, and evaluated his wounds. He definitely had an open fracture. There were bone fragments visible, but he was much too painful for us to be able to do anything with the wound, clip or clean, or do anything appropriately. So we gave him pain meds.
Let me cut to the chase to get a summary, and then you can kind of go down to the details, because I'm not a vet. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. And that's what I'm trying to determine is the standard of care in the industry. I've got some information from this Dr. Thorpe at Blue Pearl and from the patient history notes from Blue Pearl, but why do you think you don't owe $10,000 to Becky Page, kind of the summary, and then we can get into details?
Sure. So when I spoke to Ms. Page right after I evaluated her pet, I made it clear that I would recommend transferring him to a specialty hospital with a cardiologist and orthopedic surgeon so that he could be evaluated by them. Unfortunately, there were no specialists available over the weekend. And so I told her that at our facility, most ERs do not have orthopedic surgeons. And so the only procedure we would be able to offer would be either stabilization of the limb, which would require sedation in and of itself, and or amputation, which would require sedation or anesthesia. Ms. Page made it very clear that she only wanted one procedure performed. So no sedation for appropriate wound care, just the surgery itself. So I told her, okay, this wound looks like it's only associated with a limb. So I think that that is okay if we start him on all appropriate treatment for pain control, antibiotics to prevent systemic infection, all of that, and then go ahead with a limb amputation. We absolutely can do that. So that was the plan. As far as I know, no staff member told her that he was clipped and cleaned specifically, but the OR was set up for him all night. We had a huge influx of patients, so we weren't able to get to him. We tried many times, but he did seem comfortable and continued to be stable overnight. Then the following morning, Dr. Berggren came on staff, evaluated him, and then I came back in around noon and was told that Ms. Page had changed her mind and maybe wanted the limb repaired surgically. So then I called around to different specialty hospitals to get her and transfer him to so that she could be evaluated. He could be evaluated by the orthopedic surgeon. So we facilitated that. I spoke with the doctor who was going to intake him, told him the story of everything, that she did not want two procedures performed, and that's why his wound was not taken care of, along with the fact that she only approved one procedure. She declined two.
Oh, so she didn't mention that part.
And the pet was too painful for me to do anything with the wound. I thought it would be inhumane. And I also made it clear to her before we transferred that the orthopedic surgeon will always evaluate the pet and make their own determination of what they recommend best, since they are the specialists. So whether that is surgical fixation, whether it's amputation, It's up to them and their license what they decide. And that was all I knew about it. External fixation was offered at Blue Pearl. That's where a big contraption is placed.
Thanks. Tell me what that is.
Sure. So it's where a big contraption is placed externally. So internal fixation is with plates and screws, what we typically know of fixing a leg. But external fixation can occur with an infected wound. And they offered that to her, but she declined it because she did not want two procedures done.
All right. So I'm looking at the Olympia Pet Emergency documents here that were filed by Ms. Page. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is any comment, from what you did and what this Dr. Thorpe is saying that we talked about earlier that's in the plaintiff's information from July of 2024.
Mhm.
I think Dr. Thorpe seems to support that. Unfortunately, we practice during a time there are more cases than emergency veterinarians. So sadly, many wait too long and some die while waiting to be seen, given overwhelming caseloads. But before that, talks about, after reviewing notes, that should have been referred to an emergency veterinarian. Okay. Your comment on any of that comment
Sure.
from this group?
So he did specify that anesthesia would have to occur for any of those things to happen, which is the procedure that was declined by Ms. Page.
Okay.
So in order for us to do anything with the wound that would have been appropriate, we would have need to perform the second procedure.
Which,
Yes.
okay, so the first procedure would have been what?
Clipping, cleaning, flushing, potentially, if we felt that we needed to do a sample of the wound, closing it over, and then putting a big bandage on it so that he would be immobile.
And that required anesthesia.
Yes.
And why were you concerned about anesthesia with this dog?
Because he had an underlying heart murmur, so cardiac disease, and he had a collapsing trachea, so he was at high risk.
Collapsed trachea, so that's the windpipe.
Yes.
All right. So then that would be the first, and then the second procedure would have been
Would have
some
been
sort of-
either some sort of procedure, so either amputation, surgical repair of the limb by an orthopedic surgeon, whether it was internal or external, or potentially euthanasia, which was the last option.
Okay, and all that would have required anesthesia as well?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So any comment on what you did as part of, maybe you can give me an understanding of your history in the field, your experience, your training, how long you've been
Sure.
doing this work?
So I graduated from the University of California, Davis in 2011. So it had been about 10 years I'd been in practice, and I had been practicing small animal emergency medicine specifically for about 7 years before that. But I've been doing emergency surgeries, procedures the entire time. I've done quite a few limb amputations, both front limb and hind limb in dogs and cats. I'm quite comfortable with it.
So this is something you've seen, how often you think when you're practicing in a month?
I've probably done over 20 of both front limb and hind limb, a mix of dogs and cats. We don't see amputations very often, maybe 2 or 3 in 6 months.
Okay, all right. And you've done this internal fixing?
No, that would be an
process?
orthopedic surgeon.
Okay, so that's not in your, you
Correct.
do the
They're
emergency
specialists.
MRE. Okay. So this was something you've been doing as a small animal emergency vet for at least, what, 7 years before, and then 10 years with Olympia?
So I worked at OPE 3 years now, end of November. but I had joined a few months before I presented. So I've been
Okay.
working at a different hospital in California.
Okay, all right. So about 10 years doing this emergency vet. All right. So then in your opinion, what you did, or was it within a standard of care?
If the goal was to fix the limb, so not amputation, we would have absolutely needed to address the wound immediately. Because the goal was amputation, and it seemed to me that Ms. Page was okay with that, because the wound was on the limb itself and Pike had multiple comorbidities, so heart disease, his windpipe was collapsing, things like that. I decided it was appropriate if we could keep him comfortable and stable, that we could not address the wound, so only perform one procedure total if we amputated. But if the goal was to repair the limb, I would have absolutely tried to convince her to do a procedure to prevent infection of the wound. But as far as tell with speaking to her, she seemed absolutely fine with amputation, and I did not foresee a change in her mind coming, unfortunately.
So Saturday amputation, I think Ms. Page was clear too. She did change directions at times. And then by Sunday, the thought was different. So you wouldn't, all right, so the clipping and cleaning and so forth of the wound, that would have cried, I think I'm understanding better, required the anesthesia, which you were concerned about using anesthesia with, as Dr. Thorpe said too, the age of this animal, the collapsed trachea, the heart murmur, all of those, that's risky, let alone to do it twice. And so then if you're going to take the leg off, doesn't make sense to put the dog under anesthesia as a risky procedure, just to clean it if you're going to take the leg off and need anesthesia there. Okay, I think I'm getting it.
Yes.
All right. All right. So anything else you want to say before I turn to Dr. Berggren?
Sure. I did speak with an emergency veterinarian at Blue Pearl before I transferred Pike and explained the situation, and we decided not to further address the wound, even though he was more comfortable at that time, but we also didn't want anything to occur during transport. It's about 10 minutes between our hospitals. So we also decided that I wouldn't try and do any more before transfer, even though it would not have been a sedated procedure. They were okay with intaking him without any further wound care, and we had sent all of the records to them electronically, so they should have gotten those as well.
Okay. And that's pretty usual course of events or not?
Yes.
It is, all right. All right, so Dr. Berggren, then turning to you, you could tell me, not right away what you did, because I can't really evaluate that from my situation. What I'm trying to do is maybe we'll start you out with what's your background in this field and dealing with such an injury that you were faced with, and then maybe we'll start there.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I graduated from Washington State University with my DVM degree in 2003, so I've been in practice for 22 years. I worked in general practice for 5 years part-time, in addition to working at Olympia Pet Emergency directly out of school. In total, I worked at Olympia Pet Emergency for 19 years. I was the medical director for approximately 12 of those. Now I am a traveling relief veterinarian. I travel all over. I'm licensed in 5 states, and I'm currently working toward my master's degree in veterinary forensics through the University of Florida. In my relief work, I actually periodically work at Blue Pearl in Tacoma, in addition to several other hospitals. And I myself have performed, I would say, dozens of amputations, like Dr. Weinberg, on dogs, cats, front legs, back legs, and I've managed, I would say, hundreds to thousands of patients that have incurred injuries such as pike.
So then what was your part of Pike's care?
Yes, my part, I came in for my shift Sunday morning and took over from the overnight doctor and took over care for all patients, which essentially means that we went through patient side rounds and then where I assumed responsibility for the patient's care, and then evaluated all of the patients individually and then read their records and made any adjustments and all of that. I then, when Dr. Weinberg came back in right around noon that day, she took over care with Pike, specifically since she had admitted him and started with the patient. I didn't have any opportunity to have any direct communication or indirect communication with Miss Page, but I evaluated Pike. The only changes that I made to his plan that morning were chest X-rays were taken to demonstrate the fracture and look at his thorax. But I've seen many bite wounds where there are wounds in other places, and generally when an animal is bitten, neither the biter nor the bitee are holding still, and so there's potential for widespread other injuries. And so I requested that that my team also obtain some abdominal X-rays, again, just to make sure that there were no other wounds that we hadn't seen or found and other comorbidities or other underlying diseases that should be considered as part of his case.
All right. And so then you came in Sunday AM and and what you saw of this animal. And so did you consult then also with Dr. Weinberg?
No, when I took over, Dr. Weinberg was hopefully home sleeping. And then when she came back in around noon, then we did consult with him. I'm sorry, I did consult with her regarding Pike.
So all the treatment thus far, by the time you see Pike, what was your take as to, is that from your point of view as a 22 years as a DVM, then and working with this Olympia pet emergency for 19 years and having been the medical director, and apparently serving at lots of other clinics through your work as a training relief vet, what's your opinion as to the care that Pike received up to Sunday morning when you met Pike?
To be completely honest with you, I immediately, when I examined him, I had concerns that the wound care had not been done, but there were parts of the story that I didn't know. I hadn't read his record, and then through reading the record, I wasn't aware that she had specifically declined that. Whenever we have a geriatric patient with underlying illnesses, I should back up. Anytime we put anyone under sedation and anesthesia, there are inherent risks, be it dog, cat, human, or elephant. And that those risks do increase with age, even though age is not a disease, but they do also increase, especially with other conditions, especially of the respiratory tract and with heart disease. The risks are great. And so when I later learned that, okay, the wound care had not been done because, number one, the risks, and that makes perfect sense. It really does, the risks of two procedures, but also the fact that Ms. Page had specifically declined to procedure because of the known risks. It sounds like they had talked about that. We all knew what the risks were. She was aware of what those risks were. And had specifically declined that. And veterinary medicine at this point is a service-based profession. We as veterinarians, within legal right, of course, are still to some extent at the will of the pet owner. I know that you know, Your Honor, but animals, pets, are in the state of Washington considered legal property, and the owner of that property also is directly responsible for making decisions for their care with our guidance and direction. And when a client, when a pet owner directly declines something specifically, it is our responsibility to express concern when that concern is there, but also to document that and comply the best we can within within reason with those requests. And so we can't go above and beyond and sedate him, put him under anesthesia, even though that she had specifically declined it. That's not that would put us at great liability ultimately. And when the plan changed, when Ms. Page indicated that she was interested in pursuing repair with an orthopedic surgery, Dr. Weinberg then broached that subject again of sedating him, and she reiterated that she declined. And then to have the clinician at Blue Pearl also say, yeah, well, definitely don't do any sedative procedure right now before he transfers, because then he's going to be transferring on the road for anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on traffic, recovering from a procedure. They indicated just get him here, and we'll take care of the rest moving forward.
All right.
I
Okay.
apologize if I gave you more information than you wanted.
No, that was helpful. All right, and anything else before I turn to Ms. Bryant?
The only thing that I will say, and this speaks to the care of Pike while he was at our facility, as well as what Dr. Thorpe had said. This was at a time in the pandemic and just in practice in general where it is unfortunate that many patients had to wait, and that was, again, it was unfortunate necessity because there were and still continue to be many more need than there are emergency veterinarians and veterinary staff. But our intention was to get to his procedure, and we would have gotten to his procedure later that afternoon. I had additional staff coming in. I had Dr. Weinberg coming in as a second doctor. So our intentions were to get to his procedure as soon as we could. The delays are unfortunate, but those were things that were really unfortunately out of our control. And that's all.
All right. So then turning to Ms. Bryant, before I hear from you. So all right, turning back to Ms. Bryant, on behalf of Olympia Pet Emergency, let me remember you are the, wrote that down, the hospital manager. And so were you the hospital manager at the time that this was all going on?
I was not.
You were not. Okay.
No, ma'am. I became aware of, so I joined Olympia Pet Emergency in July of 2023.
Okay.
I did not become aware of this case until Mrs. Page had reached out to our general email, letting us know that her lawyer had made a second attempt. So that was the first of my knowledge of this case.
Okay. So on behalf of Olympia Pet Emergency is the hospital manager, we're talking about what happened back in 2021. And the claim here has your response. I mean, the assertion is that Olympia Pet Emergency was negligent in some way. Do you have any response to that, or what can you say to that?
So I can respond. So I have 20 years of experience in the veterinary field, not medically, but I have, I was a receptionist for many years, and I've been in management for about 8 years now.
So what do you,
I'm
do you do
familiar
now?
with how emergency medicine works, I suppose, is how I would word that.
but what are your duties right now at Olympia Pet Emergency?
I manage the staff. We train the staff. We have about 25 employees, and that's not including our relief staff.
So when you say staff, that includes the doctors?
No, I'm sorry, that's just support staff. And then
all right.
currently I've got 3 doctors, 3 full-time doctors, and then we also utilize relief doctors.
All right. So, but do you have any supervisory, as a hospital manager, any supervisory authority over the medical professionals, doctors or
Just, I don't
techs?
have authority over the doctors. I have authority over the support staff.
Okay, and support staff who might be veterinary techs or assistants?
Yes, yeah. So veterinary assistants, veterinary technicians, receptionists, kennel assistants.
All right. All right. And so you're not a veterinarian,
No.
right?
No.
Okay. All right. So you've had experience working in veterinary places, and now you've elevated to the hospital manager and you're managing the staff who are not doctors.
Correct.
All right. So, yeah, I don't really see how any of your testimony would be relevant to this claim of malpractice by veterinarians. Ms. Page, any questions of Ms. Bryant on that issue about Olympia Pet Emergencies? You're asserting they were negligent in general, and
Yeah, I do. You mentioned, Betty Rose, you handle the support staff and the vet techs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they not qualified to do wound care or cleaning?
Upon the doctor's direction.
Gotcha. Okay. I did want to clarify
that's a legal situation that they can't just make decisions to do medical procedures.
Okay. And the wound clipping and cleaning, I just want to clarify, Your Honor, that was not for anesthesia or sedation.
yeah, I haven't asked you to testify. I'm just asking if you've got questions of Ms. Bryant as representative of Olympia Pet Emergency as to your claim of negligence there.
So if there was not support staff in place to do wound cleaning and clipping, you would bring them in?
We do call staff in the event that it starts getting busy. It looks like that day between 8 a.m. and 12 a.m. we had 13 medical cases come in, as well as 6 euthanasias. So it was a busy day. And the way the emergency medicine works is very much like human medicine ER. It's triaged based on the most critical. So if a patient that's not, respiratory distress, that patient's going to go in front of everybody, because it's in the middle of trying to pass. So we triage it on levels of.
So Ms. Bryant, you don't do the triage though, correct?
I don't myself. No, ma'am. That's just the protocol here.
All right. Any other questions of Ms. Bryant as to the hospital's negligent claim that you have?
No further questions.
Okay. All right. All right. Let me just kind of look through everything here, see if I have any other questions of anybody, and I'll render a judgment here. All right. Well, this page, the reality is that our animals are considered property under the state of Washington law. All of us know that that's not what we all think. But unfortunately, so what I have to apply here is not medical malpractice as to humans. It's, can these folks take efforts on your property? It's really ugly the way the law is, but that's what it is. You dictate that. We dictate that. You know, whenever I take the animal into our vet. And when I look at the experts who we have here, who I can judge, it's Ms. Weinberg or Dr. Weinberg and Dr. Berggren are the experts here in that field. I'm giving as much consideration to Dr. Thorpe's statement from July of 2024, but then I'm also looking back to the patient records that were sent to Blue Pearl, and I look on November 21st of 21, that change of plan, called the owner, she'd like to potentially have the limb surgically repaired. And so calling Blue Pearl in Tacoma, and they said, do not sedate the limb. Don't set it prior to seeing. He's a high anesthetic risk. That would be up to the doctor there. And so we've heard why they didn't go through these two procedures, and the experts are telling me why they didn't, and that seems to be in the standard of care and supported by the communications with Blue Pearl before the transport. So you're asking me to find, is there negligence committed? Was there a breach of the duty of care? Was there that breach of the duty of care a proximate or direct cause of your dog's death? And I have no evidence to find any of that. In fact, contrary to that, the experts here, and even taking Dr. Thorpe's statement from 2.5 years later, looking back at what the statements were collected from Blue Pearl at the time of the transfer, is in contradiction. And I think what's, so there isn't, I can't find that there is any breach of that standard of care in veterinary medicine. And certainly then you've not met your burden. And from there, there's no breach of that duty, no negligence attributable to Dr. Weinberg, Dr. Berggren, nor Olympia Pet Emergency Hospital. And so your claim is dismissed. And that's the end of the matter. So I've signed off on that, and everyone can be on their way. I'm sorry about Pike, and I hope you find another good friend. That's all for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Be safe, be well, sleep sweet, and much love.